Okay, it sounds muffled in my ears for some reason. Hey, good morning, everybody, and happy South Florida. This is the Florida Talk Real Estate Show, the #1 information provider of all things real estate in South Florida. We've been doing it over 12 years. And if you're on Facebook and YouTube, because yes, we are live right now, you can see that the seat for Johnny C is missing a person right now. So you're dealing with Jimmy D from Keller Williams Innovations. We got a great lineup today. Good morning, Mike. How are you doing today?
Doing great this morning. Thank you. Mike with the mortgage firm, the mortgage guy.
And my headphones sound better all of a sudden. Hey, wow. Mike from the mortgage firm, the mortgage guy. How are you doing today? Everything going good?
Doing great.
Good. And we got a really special guest here today, and I wish Ross had stayed because Johnny's not here.
Oh.
But Ross Kamarinets decided that the place was too crowded. He was too tired, so he decided to go home. So we have a special guest right now. We got DeMott. I'm so excited to have Dan here. I've known Dan. Dan, how long have we known each other now?
Probably a good 5 years.
That's what I'm thinking, about 5 years. And Dan used to be the team leader for Keller Williams Innovations in Boynton Beach. Before that, he and his family owned a brokerage for a very long time.
Yep, 26 years.
Way longer than you look old. I know you have parents that were doing it before you. But also now you're a national real estate coach, and you have a company called I Love Coaching.
Yep.
And what Dan does is he helps agents all over the country with improving their productivity and also making sure that they have a life during their productivity.
Yep, absolutely. I like to say we make good agents great agents.
Good agents, great agents. That's so true.
And what do you do for great agents?
We make great agents exceptionally well.
They don't go to Dan for that. They don't need them anymore. I'm teasing.
That's right. There's always that guy.
Who, me?
Are all your brothers like that, or just you, Mike? I actually think Dave.
I was going to say probably me and Brian are most like that. My oldest brother, Dave, is not. He's quiet.
Yeah, he's the quiet one. So, do I have to add you to the stage, Timothy? Oh, I'm doing it I did it for something else. I'm sorry. That's the camera crew for our studio. What do you mean? I have to unmute you? Oh.
This way the audio can get out to YouTube. There we go.
Wow, I got it almost all right. So everybody on Facebook,
if you didn't hear, we have to play back later when the thing turns into recording. This is Jimmy D taking the place of Johnny C for the Florida Home Pros with the Florida Talk Real Estate Show. We have Dan DeMott here, our special guest from I Love Coaching, a national real estate coach. He's also my coach, which I really appreciate. Dan's given me some really valuable advice over the last year, and really looking forward to continuing the relationship. And if you're an agent listening to this show, and I know there's a lot of them out there, you really got to check out Dan's information. Dan, how can they find out more about you?
Yeah, best way is my website, dandemott.com, DANDEMOTT.com. Best way to get a bunch of free resources and for us to speak.
Okay, excellent. And let me tell you, Dan is a little different in the fact that I've had a lot of real estate coaches over the years, but one of the things that makes Dan unique is that he doesn't just give you advice on what to do. He actually gives you information that you can use right there. For example,
weekly emails that he can give you just to put up to your database. Dan, we just worked on one together about talking about how much equity people have.
Absolutely.
Well, in Dan's example, he took a national statistic. I think it was the average home had $33,000 of equity in the last year, I think it was.
Yeah, that was actually a real case study for a client that we worked with who had bought a house about a year ago and built $33,000 of equity. And a lot of my clients, real estate agents across the country, have been running with that and finding amazing examples. The great news is for the average consumer, if you've invested in real estate or you own a home over the past year, you had positive price appreciation. We've got some great case studies that are building for that.
We sent out an email asking, and if a lot of people listen to the show right now, if you're in our database, you have an email sitting in your inbox, basically, if you haven't opened it up already, saying, if you want a free home evaluation, we'll do it for you. And let me tell you, when we do our free home evaluation, it is not some computer algorithm where we click a button and just let them do it. I actually do the comparative market analysis. This week, I don't know if you like this, Dan, but this week I did 8 people that requested their home analysis this week. But what I do is a little special, I think. I give it a little special sauce. So on top of giving you the MLS statistics for your property in your neighborhood, that is very, it's just as if I were trying to determine what to sell your house for at that moment. On top of that, I actually create a video, a screen-recorded video showing how I do the analysis instead of just spitting out a number.
Yep.
And we give you everything that's happening in the neighborhood. I've done it a little bit once or twice with Jimothy when we were trying to do Jimothy's property, going over the comparative market analysis. Do you remember how we analyzed your property when we were selling it?
A couple times.
Yeah.
Did it, I think 3 times, when all was said and done. But yes, I do.
That's because the interest rates were going up so fast. At that point, we had to check it, right?
Absolutely.
But so we actually do a real comparative market analysis, and we're not trying to force you to sell your house or anything. If you just want to know what your house is worth, we're more than happy to give you that information for free. And we sent out, so I did 8 of those this weekend. 8 people asked so far.
Yep.
I have another 4 or 5 that came in yesterday as people opened up the email. But guess what? There's one family. They bought their house in 2017. I just did a comparative market analysis. The house is worth 85% more than what they paid in 2017.
It's amazing.
85% more. Can you imagine? And so it's really interesting. And that's one of the benefits of working with Dan as a coach, is that he not only kind of coaches you on how to do things, but he actually gives you the tools you can use to try to boost up your productivity. So I really appreciate that, Dan. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. I think that's a great story as well to share, because, my motivation for getting into the space of coaching and helping real estate agents is ultimately to help the consumer. And when you look at someone you helped purchase a home and has now built 85% more equity, right? You've changed the financial picture for that family. And for me, that's what's most important, is helping real estate agents understand how to be really consultative to the consumer, and you're doing a great job with that.
Well, thanks. I want to go into a little bit more about what's happening in market with Mike too, and we're going to talk about what's happening in market, because we're really blessed. Not only do we have Dan here, which Dan is one of the few guys I can talk to, a few people I could talk to that actually understands the macroeconomics as good or maybe even better than I do. And I really appreciate that, because a lot of people in our industry, they don't really understand the components of what is creating the industry. They're just a reactionary component of the industry. And the problem with that is that as the market changes, if you're not ready for that change, you could actually put your customer in not as great a situation as they could be if you poison them the right way.
Yep.
And being proactive on things and actually reading what's happening in the national market and what the economists are saying is really interesting. Last year, Johnny named me, Johnny C., our host of the show one time, named me the Swami, right? Because of my predictions, and I'm kind of fearless about making the predictions. Mike's the exact opposite. He hates making predictions. I always put him in the hot seat.
That's what you want. That's what you want from a good mortgage guy. Just the facts.
He doesn't want to tell you
Just
anything,
the facts,
right?
Jim.
But I love trying to predict what's going on, because we read so much. And last year, I went through the videos or the podcasts, which you can get on the iHeartMedia app. You can go to YouTube, Florida Talk Real Estate LLC, or you can go to the Facebook page, Florida Talk Real Estate. And we have over 500 episodes in there, going all the way back to like 2014 or something. But the interesting thing was, last year in November and December, I kept pounding that the economists were saying by this time, actually a month ago, that we would have had already 3 to 4 Fed rate drops, and that we would be in the low 5s right now for interest rates. That
was kind of like the 2023 prediction for market movement.
The 2022 for 2023.
Okay.
So it was November 2022, December 2022 for 2023. I kept saying they're on crack. That's not going to happen. They were predicting at that time. I think it was like 5 to 7 or closer to 8% for appreciation. I was like, that's not happening. I was saying 3 to 5%. Well, we just got the reports came in. Palm Beach County for year over year, single family home, 4.3%. So half of what some of the optimistic people were talking about, right on where I was saying last year, and I was going against the grain of everybody. I'm not saying you,
But I was very proud when I saw the report come out last night. I was like, yes,
you called
I was
it.
right
You called
there
it well.
within a fraction of a percent.
Absolutely.
And now I think your prediction for the end of this year,
I
I'm
have a
remembering,
prediction.
was something like rates at 6.
I'm changing it.
Oh, you're going
I'm
to change?
changing it.
Oh,
What I originally was
geez.
saying was,
What's the point then?
yeah, but no, I'm changing it only one time. So we're going to get into that a little later, why I changed it, Mike, because it's all tied into what we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Mulligan.
we're
It's
going to
all
get
mulligan.
into a lot of the market reports today and find out what's going to be happening next year. Now that we have Dan here, I really like having Dan here to talk about this. Not only is he plugged into what's going on in the economy like I am, but also Dan talks to agents from all over the country. So he kind of knows what's happening everywhere. I know a little bit too because of the referrals we give out across the country, but you're talking to top agents in different markets every single day.
Yep.
So you kind of know exactly what's going on.
I think
So
I
I'm looking
remember
forward to that.
you talking about some of Dan's predictions where he was a little bit against the grain because people were talking about, or we were saying rates were going to continue to go up. And how's that going to affect appreciation? And you were saying, Dan's predicting appreciation still for 2023.
Yeah, and I
don't
wasn't
know if
sure.
he said 10% or something like that or a number, but I think Dan predicted appreciation.
I don't think he predicted 10%.
Yeah, I never pegged a number, but yeah, I think that for last year, price appreciation was inevitable, and I think when we get into it, 2024 price appreciation is not only inevitable but likely to be more than it was last year.
Yeah. So we're expecting a change coming. But before we do that, let's just do a couple of shout outs if you don't mind. Okay, so the first person I want to shout out is to Mason and to David Stein, one of my newest agents. He just put Mason under contract for a listing down in Lauderhill. That was our townhome. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhome in Lauderhill. We had a heck of a time selling that one because we had a couple of offers come in. But here's something that you need to know is that even though it's a townhome, it's considered a condo. So when you're selling a condo, the seller has an obligation to give certain financial documents related to the condo community to the buyer as part of the process. And if they don't give these specific documents to the buyer to review before closing, that is another contingency or out that they can use to back out of the contract all the way up to the day of closing. And so we have a policy that we don't put the house on the market until we have all that paperwork. Well, we broke that rule this time, and this is why we should not break the rule. We had a couple offers come in, but they said they wanted the condo documents before they would actually, they turned in the offer. But one of the things was, we don't really want to go into contract till you give us the documents first. Reasonable enough request. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But we couldn't get the documents. And it's very difficult sometimes to get these from the condo boards. And a lot of times they don't want to deal with realtors. So you have to go to the homeowner to muscle them as, hey, I'm the owner of the property. I'm asking for documents that I should rightfully have.
I mean, some of these documents are critical from a lending perspective, and some of them are just requirements. Like you have to give them bylaws. You have to give them, I don't know what's required as far as homeowner association information that you're transferring to the new owner versus, say, the budget or the financials.
It's the budget, the financials,
Okay.
the frequently asked questions, the rules and regulations.
So just the whole shebang. And some of
the
that
whole
is
thing.
critical from a lending perspective.
Yeah, and you really need to know. You know, we talked about that last week when we had an octogenarian that we were buying a house for. They're on a fixed income. They're looking at a 55 and over community. And I had to really quadruple check to make sure that the community had taken care of any insurance issues or upgrades to the property that are required for insurance, so that her condo fee didn't go up so high that her house would become unaffordable in the future. That's pretty scary right now to deal with that.
And that's a somewhat new development. Like the super sharp agents who are looking out for their clients' interests are saying, yeah, condo dues right now are whatever, $350 a month. What are they going to be next year this time? Are they going to be $750 a month, which will basically could bankrupt, you know, a lot of people, right? That type of increase in insurance. In
2014, I had during the crash, we had a person that had bought a condo that was a short sale and it was totally affordable for them, first-time home buyers, young family. Then they had a baby, so more expenses. Then a hurricane came. There was hardly anybody paying the townhome fees back then because there were so many short sales. And then they had to jack up the rates to take care of the hurricane.
Yeah.
they couldn't afford the place anymore. I had to short sale the house in order for them to avoid the high HOA fees that they couldn't afford anymore. So it's a real life situation. It isn't just now, it's happened in the past,
Sure.
but it's a cycle. So it comes and goes away.
Well, that's right. I think the flip side to that is there's tremendous opportunity in condos if you're working with a real estate agent and a lender who understand the dynamics and can give you great advice. Condo inventory is always higher than single family. Condo pricing and price appreciation always lags single family because of some of the complexity. But in that, there's a lot of asymmetry, meaning there are great condo communities that are well run, properly financed, and where you can get great deals, as there are bad ones where you can really get burned. But especially with all the price appreciation we've seen in South Florida, condos are becoming more and more of an entry point for people, especially ones that are well run. And I think the condo pricing has the most opportunity for growth going forward once we navigate the insurance issues, some of the issues coming out of the 40-year inspections and things like that.
So yes, and thank you, Dan. And so what happened with Mason in this deal is that we couldn't get the documents. We had 2 offers come in because the house was on the market. They didn't want to have it executed till we had the documents. We couldn't get the documents for weeks. Those buyers went away.
That's a little scary.
Yeah, it was. It was a pain in the butt. It took us extra long to sell the house, right? Instead of 20-something days, it was 40-something days. So then what happened was we had another offer come in, and thank goodness we were able to squeeze the condo and give us the information we needed. We went into contract yesterday, so congratulations, Mason. We got your house under contract next. I think we did the inspection yesterday. I'm sorry. I think we went in contract Tuesday. Had the inspection yesterday. Everything's looking good. Knock on wood.
So here's the question: do you, as the listing agent, do you know what type of offers you can accept to buy that kind of financed offers? Do you know if you can accept
yes, FHA,
low down payment,
right.
FHA, low down payment conventional, FHA, VA?
That's what I wanted to talk, because Dan was talking about how condos can be an avenue for people to get in for affordability. The one trick to that is how much down payment do you need for a condo?
Yep.
Yeah.
With the condos, sometimes you're going to need 20, 25, 30%, correct?
Sometimes,
minimum.
yeah. I think for take the 20% number out of that thought process. So it's either 25 or 30, or it could be less, right? So,
well, when you say could be less, that means that they conform with the federal government guidelines, and then they can do lower down payment.
So it's Fannie and Freddie guidelines. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that is government.
It's a little bit nebulous
true.
there, like whether they're government or not. But
federal guidelines.
Yeah, essentially there's conventional financing, FHA financing, VA financing, and you're not going to find USDA in these census tracts. So those 3 types of offers, and then VA has a list. If it's not on the list, you probably aren't going to be able to get a VA loan. It's possible, but there's a very lengthy process to get something approved. So you might as well take it off. FHA has their list. If it's not already approved on the list, you might as well not consider it. Conventional also has a list, and this is a relatively new development, Jim. Used to be you could do conventional financing, limited review or full review. So the easy way or the hard way, right? And as a listing agent or as a buyer, or the lender representing the buyer, the reason they want these documents is because they want to know, hey, we're doing a 5% down loan. We got to know that it's going to pass the full review, right? Meaning it's going to meet the guidelines that Fannie and Freddie set down for what they call a full review condo, a relatively in-depth look at the condo project. So not only does the borrower have to qualify for the loan, the condo project has to qualify for financing. So full review is where all those documents are very critical. Limited review, meaning as a primary home, you're buying it to live in, if you can put 25% down or more, not 24%, not 20%, 25% or more, you could do a limited review. And that one it's not as in-depth, and there's a very high likelihood that even if the financials aren't right, we're not looking at them, right? It's going to be fine. We still look at insurance. That's one that can get you. If you're buying a second home, a vacation home, or an investment property, it's 30% down. So that threshold is 25 or 30% or anything less than that. Now, the relatively recent development is there are certain condos that have been reviewed already by Fannie, and they give a status that doesn't make any sense. It's called unavailable. Unavailable means that project, You can't do a loan on that project because that can't be delivered to Fannie and Freddie. They won't buy the loan. So unavailable means, hey, no, you can't do conventional financing at all.
At all?
At all.
Cash
Regardless of the down payment amount.
Huh.
So they've reviewed it.
Are there a lot of those out there?
I don't know about a lot, but they exist.
Is that related to the list that they were coming out with a couple weeks ago, where they announced they were going to come out with a more detailed list of condos that would be approved for financing?
It's kind of like that. Now it's behind an access, so you need to have access. So you don't need to know this stuff. Here's the overriding thing. You don't need to know this as a consumer. You don't need to know this as a real estate agent, but you need to know somebody who does know this stuff. And so you, for example, any condo listing you take, you should be going to your preferred lender who knows their stuff and say, hey, Mike, tell me about the conventional financing options on this condo. Tell me about VA. Tell me about FHA financing. You just have to know it if you're going to sell your condo or if you're a real estate agent working with buying or selling condos.
Mm-hmm.
So the prudent thing to do would be send the address to your lender and say, hey, tell me everything you know about condo options for this address. And then your lender can dig in. But so that list can be helpful, but it can also say, hey, I'm sorry, you can't even do financing at all. Or you have to do non-conforming, cash equivalent type financing.
This is really good stuff for people thinking that they're going to buy the condo, because the biggest issue I see with people when they're thinking about buying condo, unless they have a big down payment. If they don't have the big down payment and they go, oh, condos are affordable, I'm going to go buy one of those.
Yeah.
But they don't realize all the stuff that Mike's just talking about.
That's
so
right.
You got to have the right information. And the way you get that information as a great mortgage broker like Mike Rauch from the mortgage firm. Mike will give you all this information for free.
Yeah.
And give you very detailed information, always have your back. A lot of people won't find out about this problem until after the inspection, and maybe sometimes even after the appraisal, or maybe you wouldn't get to the appraisal at this point.
I would say late in the game. So yeah, you've spent money. Not only have you spent time, emotional investment, like just finding the right home, right? Like you're out there shopping.
All excited.
And then you get into contract finally. Maybe you've been beaten up in the market as a buyer, which is still possible in today's market. Maybe you've put 5 offers. Finally, you get that offer accepted. You pay for an inspection, you pay for an appraisal, and then all of a sudden, 2-3 weeks into the process, they're like, "Oh wait, you can't do it." And there's nothing you can do.
And here's another thing that people don't get is usually listing agents don't check into this when they take the listings.
Unfortunately,
the listing agents, right, Dan?
Yep.
A lot of them don't check into this beforehand, so they're taking finance deals that they can't close and they don't know it.
Yes.
And then the homeowners have no idea about this either, because probably when they bought the condo back in the day, the regulations were probably a little different. Like if they owned it 15, 20 years ago, it's going to be different than today.
Yep.
So if you're thinking about buying condos, please use experts that understand how the process works and make sure that you know your stuff, because not knowing can cost you a lot of money.
Yeah, and just the one thing that's like the relatively recent development is the unavailable status, which Jim, if you were coming and we're doing 25% down, I used to be like, okay, now you can buy in any condo, right? It doesn't matter. We can do conventional financing. You're doing 25%, we're limited review, boom, we can get it done. Now it's like, no, let me check it first, make sure it's available for that option. And then you can get in pretty much any condo, right? Anything that's not unavailable. So it's just one more check on there. It's also helpful because you could see ones that are already approved with Fannie Freddie. And then you could say, I don't care what you could do it 3%.
That list is pretty depressing when you get into it.
No, the FHA list is depressing. I looked yesterday. There are 7 projects in Palm Beach County that are approved for FHA financing. 7 condo projects.
Well, here's the thing that I think people have to look for. Again, I always try to be forward looking. I want to know where things are going. And I think the fact that we have lists, more information is better, right? The values of those community condos in those communities that are approved and on that list is inherently higher than those that are not, because they're easier to finance.
Absolutely.
So we have a bigger buyer pool. And we have to give some credit to Florida state legislature. Over the past 2 years, they've actually passed some really good legislation for the condo market, including the bill they passed last year, which is going to put or require all condos to properly fund their reserves, starting with next year's budget. So this year's budget, they could still vote to partially fund those reserves, which essentially means that the condo association doesn't have all the money it needs on hand to make the repairs that may be projected or estimated in the future.
Yep.
That's going away next year, which probably will put a lot more condominiums onto that list because their finances will be in good shape.
Yeah, that's true because they're going through that correction, almost like we're going to talk about this in a little bit, almost like the insurance correction. We are seeing a correction there,
Yep.
In a positive way. So hopefully that'll continue. Let me just wrap up with one more shout out, and then we're going to take the break, and then we're going to go into what's happening in the market, especially for buyers. If you've been sitting on the sidelines and you're thinking about buying a property, but you've just been sitting around, it's the market's no good. I'm waiting for the interest rates to go down, or I'm waiting for the prices to go down. You got to hear the next segment when we're coming in. But the last shout out is going to be to Cindy and her crew. So Cindy came to us about 40 days ago. They had a estate sale. They have 5 people involved as principals in the deal. So they're in a couple of different states, all relatives, all with a little bit different opinion of how to handle everything.
Very tricky.
Always very tricky. It went very smooth, though. We were very blessed. We put the house on the market. I think we were only on the market 25, 26 days. We had multiple people come in for offers. It was really interesting. Last week we had the house had been sitting on the market for about 20 days. We didn't really have any offers yet, but a bunch of showings. Then we got an offer. Then 6 hours later, we got another offer, but the house had been on the market over 3 weeks. So we had to go back to both people based on the seller's requirement to ask for highest and best by the next day. One of the agents like, okay, let me get to that. We're going to deal with it. The other agent copped a super big attitude about it. Didn't believe that we had another offer, thought we were squeezing them. I don't do that. I'm a legitimate guy.
Although you felt that way on the other side of things.
I felt like that way. In fact, just last week it happened, and we called the bluff and we won. But this guy thought we were bluffing, and we weren't bluffing at all. And the agent really copped an attitude about it. It was almost like a personal affront to them that we asked for a highest and best, right? And I had to personally call the guy back because I wanted to see both offers were very competitive. So I didn't want his buyer to be blocked out just because the agent's having a tissy fit,
Mm-hmm.
So called the agent back, explained what was going on. They stayed in the offer. We ended up taking the other offer. The other offer walked away. Then we went back to the other offer. And at that point, then they thought we were faking on the first offer. So they didn't want to do anything. But it all works out for good things because karma counts, right? So the family was acting good faith with both the buyers at the same time. So 2 days later, we got another offer higher than both of the ones that we originally were negotiating with. So we went into contract with that offer. We're in contract. Congratulations to Cindy and the crew. And thank you for hiring the Florida Home Pros with Keller Williams Innovations to do that. So that one was a pretty good story at the end. But wow, we had to go through 3 offers in 4 or 5 days. A lot of drama in the process.
Yeah, well, that's the value of having a great real estate agent representing you, like yourself and your team, Jim. People underestimate that. I think the average consumer doesn't understand how much consultation goes into really getting the best outcomes in this industry. So it's a testament to you and your team as well.
Yes, and I have an appointment today to go out to look at a listing in Boca Raton. I'll tell you about it later. I just wanted to say thank you because the way we got that interview for a listing was through a referral. Referral's lifeblood of our business. So everybody listening to the show, when you're thinking real estate, I'm hoping you're thinking us because this is what keeps this show going. And we love working with people, and we do so much behind the scenes for people for free. We give them tons and tons of free advice. We, on this show, Mike, Ross Camaronets from Brightway Insurance, Trident Title, the law office of Paulie Krasker, Florida Home Pros with Keller Williams. We're all here for you to get you the information that you need, and then you determine what's best for you and your family, and then we make it happen. We don't go in there telling you what to do. We tell you what your options are and let you decide what to do. And I think that's with the great professional advice. And I really see it impact people's lives every day. And just blessed to have you guys be on the show. And please think of us because you are the lifeblood of our businesses. We're going to take a break right now. On the flip side, we're going to start talking about interest rates. Have they gone down, sideways, up? What's going to be happening to buyers this year? I think that's going to be a big thing. I also think that inventory might become news this year a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also a little bit later today, we're going to be talking about insurance. I know everybody's concerned about how high insurance rates are going. We're seeing a little light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't think it's the train coming our way anymore, but we'll find out later.
Choo-choo.
This is Florida Talk Real Estate. Catch you on the flip side.
The visual aid you need for all the freaky stuff we talk about on the radio. Find it at realradio921.com. Here's the latest with weather on Real Radio.
From the Gordon and Partners Weather Center. Have you been injured in a motor vehicle accident? Call 561-333-3333 or go to fortheinjured.com.
I'm CBS 12 meteorologist Charlotte Carl. A cool day behind a front that moved through yesterday. Highs this afternoon in the upper 60s, even the low 70s. And under that clear sky, we have finally started to see we will cool down significantly this evening into the low 50s.
This report is sponsored by Fresh from Florida.
Meal planning is work, so let Fresh from Florida help. Learn what's in season, browse hundreds of recipes, and get tips from Chef Justin by visiting freshfromflorida.com. Eat healthier with Fresh from Florida. There's sunshine in every bite.
Hey, it's your boy Johnny C here, host of Florida Talk Real Estate. They're tops when it comes to helping people buy and sell houses. But Florida Talk Real Estate is so much more than that. For 5 years, I've watched these guys help thousands of our listeners with any real estate need. They couldn't do it without their sponsors, who are experts in their fields. Check it out. Jim DiPaola, powered by Keller Williams Realty. Their team specializes in helping people sell their house for top dollar, and buyers get great deals on the purchase of their home. That's what they did for me and my family, and I couldn't be happier that I hired them for my real estate transaction. Mike Rauch from the mortgage firm is one of our favorite guests on the show, and he is the mortgage guy. Whether you're looking for a refi or a mortgage to purchase a new home, Mike Rauch will get you the answers you need. The mortgage firm is licensed to do loans in Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, and they have local offices that cover all of South Florida. So if you're thinking about a refi or a new mortgage, go to the mortgage guy, Mike Rauch, and find out what he can do for you. The Mortgage Firm, Inc., NMLS 189233, Florida license MLD 78, equal housing lender. The law office of Paul A. Krasker has been specializing in real estate law for nearly 25 years and has the professional team you need. Upside down with your house, Paul's team can help you conduct short sales, loan modifications, even if you're behind on payments. They also help you with foreclosure defense and bankruptcy. They can even help you get a student loan modification and repair your credit to get the score you need. Paul's full-service team has helped thousands of our listeners, and they can help you too. Trident Title LLC is the largest privately owned title company in Florida. When you need a title company to complete a refi, home purchase, or sale, Trident Title has got you covered. Not only do they offer competitive pricing, Trident Title has attorneys on staff to make sure if you have bumps in the road declaring title that you can get the job done. Beware, not all title companies in Florida have attorneys on staff. Trident Title does and complies with all the new federal regulations released last year. Ross Camaronets, owner of Brightway Insurance, has been helping our listeners get great rates on homeowners insurance plans. Haven't checked your homeowners insurance policy in a while? This is a great way to help reduce your monthly mortgage payment. Ross can also help with renters and auto insurance. Ross is only a phone call away and can usually get the answers you need same day.
Call Ross today at 561-425-6228 or drop by his office at 873 Donald Ross Road in Juno Beach.
So now you know why I'm happy to be part of the Florida Talk Real Estate Show, the longest running real estate show in Florida. And all these sponsors are just a phone call or a click away. Just call 888-973-7828. That's 888-973-7828. Or go to floridatalkrealestate.com. That's floridatalkrealestate.com. And don't forget to use the most accurate search engine to find your new home or ask for a free home valuation because floridatalkrealestate.com has you covered. That's floridatalkrealestate.com.
You're listening to Real Radio 92.1. And we are an iHeart radio station. This is Florida Talk Real Estate with Jim DiPaola and Johnny C. Got a question for the show? Call us live at 1-877-927-6969.
Hey, this is Florida Talk Real Estate, your number one information provider of all things real estate here in South Florida. And I'm Jimmy D, your host, also known as Jim DiPaola, with the Florida Home Pros with Keller Williams Innovation. And we got a great crew here today, don't we, Jimothy? We have a pretty good crew going here today,
Damn
right? With a
boy.
special guest.
You want some good information? This is the one to tune into. 877-927-6969. You got a question for the real estate pros? Give us a call right now. Keep me busy. I'm bored over here.
Hey, yeah, and I thank you for putting out the phone number. I haven't done that the whole show. 877-927-6969. So if you have any questions about real estate, anything at all, give us a call. See if you can stump us or not, or find out what we could do. 877-927-6969. Mike from the mortgage firm, Mike the mortgage guy. How are you doing today? Mike.
I'm doing great.
You
Sorry,
doing
you threw
good?
me off. I was thinking going around the horn. You forgot to introduce Jimothy on the first go round.
I did. I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
That's
Jimothy.
That's
Producer extraordinaire.
Thank you.
Yes,
What's up,
producer
Jimothy?
extraordinaire.
You've been there the whole time?
You
just came in.
Here, every now and I'm dodging in and out. Got other issues that we're dealing with, but we are doing very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good morning,
Pleasure.
everyone. Good morning, Jim.
So Mike has, if you have any questions on interest rates at all, and let me tell you, the interest rates have been bouncing all over the place like a ping pong, although we have good news on that today. And then our special guest today is Dan DeMott, national real estate coach from I Love Coaching. You can find him at Dan DeMott, DEMOTT.com. And so if you're a real estate agent looking for a good coach, find out about Dan and give me a call. I'll tell you everything, all the inside dirt on
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, the
Nice.
good, the bad, and the ugly. But we're going to roll right into what's happening in the real estate market right now, which is kind of interesting. We had the monthly report come out. Total coincidence, Dan's here, but I love that he's here for that. But first, before we start with the monthly real estate report, let's get into interest rates first, because Mike, for a long time, I feel like you were Ross Camaronets looking doom and gloom every time we talked about interest rates on the show. It's like, do we have to? I got to tell you, I was okay through the whole thing until we got to 779. I remember when we were talking to 779 back in November.
Make
of
you
last
sweat
year.
a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I was actually kind of freaking out a little bit. Even as I was saying the words that were spitting out of my mouth, I was like, are we going to get into the nines? I was really, it seemed like it was nonstop. And if you look at the chart, it's so vertical.
Mm-hmm.
It happened so fast. But we've had good news now for 12 weeks in a row. 12 weeks. That's a long time, a whole quarter.
That's a good run.
A whole quarter we've had either interest rates drop week over week, according to Freddie Mac, or we had two flat. We had one actually we went 0.01 up 1 week, and 1 week we were flat. So we were kind of flat for 2 of the 10 weeks. What happened this week? Last week we we're at 6.66 according to Freddie Mac for a 30-year mortgage. This week we're at 6.6. So savings on your mortgage is actually pennies.
Yeah.
You can save like 57 cents on your mortgage going from 666 to 6.06.
Yeah. We should probably preface this. Dan doesn't may or may not know this, but we use Freddie's weekly report that comes out every Thursday. So their primary mortgage market survey. And we don't use it to say like, hey, this is what your rate should be. But it's just, we're just tracking movement in the rate. Because as you know, everybody, this is like a national survey. And so your rate isn't going to be exactly what this rate is. You might be higher, you might be lower. You might be paying points to get even lower than that. So, but it's a great barometer for us because it's the same report every single week. And it's a good, tells you how things are moving.
And it's the same survey every single week. So it's very consistent results. So it kind of tells us where we're heading, up, down, sideways.
Where have we been?
Yeah. Not your personal rate, but where the country in general is heading with interest rates.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's going on. So actually we've been in pretty good shape. Now, the article I read talking about the interest rates at that, they used an example of a $400,000 house. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up the notes here. Let me see, which one was it?
What do you want to see the difference between 6.66 and 6.60?
No, they were. It was a little better. I didn't want to do that because, frankly, it's so ridiculous.
I mean, you take what you can get, but
yeah,
you shouldn't be. You might, the people who might be feeling a little bit down are the people who bought in October or locked in their rate in October of 2023 versus now, right?
Yeah,
So
because
let me
they were the
ask
ones
you-
who were approaching that sweat point.
Well,
that you were
before
talking
we
about,
get
Jim.
into the interest rate talk and how it's affecting the market, let me ask you about that. Back in the day, a long time ago, even before you were on the show, this is when this is probably 2012 through 2014.
Yeah.
We used to talk about what was a good time to refinance your house based on numbers. I think we talked about it with you when you're on the show, but it was a really bigger deal at one point. And
You were talking about refis in 2012 and 2013?
yeah, we were at the time, right?
Interesting.
But the reason why there was this period where it was starting to go down and everybody was wondering whether they should refi or not. And
Yeah.
what we kind of came up with, if you weren't at least, this is back in the day, if you weren't at least a point
Yep.
reduction,
I like that.
it didn't make sense. Now, one of the things that's great, talking about the people like in October of last year, would this be a time, Mike, do you think that maybe a refi is in the cards? Only because if we're at 6.6 and they were, let's say 7.79, let's just use the numbers off of Freddie Mac.
Yeah.
That's more than a point.
Yes.
But we also believe that interest rates are going to continue to go down over time. So you don't want to go too early on your refi because you might be missing out on more lower rates,
Yeah, I think the question would be, like usually you don't want to like do a bunch of refinances, right?
Right.
So every time you get a point, like refinance at one point, and then when it go down another point, do another refinance. That's very costly. Maybe if you're staying in the home for the super long term, maybe that makes sense.
And also you're keep resetting your loan back to ostensibly you keep resetting your loan back to the 30 years or
Right.
15 years you
And
started
so
with.
if your goal of the refinance, usually you're like the goal is I want to pay the least amount of interest over the remaining life of my loan. Well, when you keep resetting to a 30-year, even though sure you could pay it off sooner, a lot of people don't do that. And so you just you have to talk about what's the goal of this refinance. Is it so that's going to be how long are you going to be in the home? And then do you want to save money and interest over the life of the loan, or you want to lower your payment? So if lowering your payment is the primary goal, yeah, lower interest rate, re-extend the term. That's a great way to, loosen up the budget if that's the primary goal. So, I mean, as long as I've been in this business, my mind has gone, they used to say 2%, right? I want a 2% savings, right? Where I think it's really going to make sense for most situations. Then that turned to 1%. When we were in 2021, people were they were at 3% and they're calling me for 2.5%, right? So it was like, you would get stuff like that where it's like less than 1%. And it's like, well, we might be at historically all time, never going to see again lows. So sure, maybe you lock it in. And I always thought, well, if someone is at 7.5 and you follow the 1% rule, they should be refinancing at 6.5. But does that sit? How does that sit with you? Like, how does that just? It just doesn't feel right.
Here's one of the other
right.
One of the other factors I think that has to go into that analysis for anyone who took advantage of a lower down payment program and is paying mortgage insurance.
Sure.
That's beyond interest, just fees. When you're going into an environment where we're looking at seeing continued price appreciation, there could become some point in the future, right, where they've built up enough equity that they could refinance and remove that mortgage insurance and get rid of some of those fees. So that's an additive benefit. So it's a complex analysis. It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah. And anytime I'm talking to refi people, my first question is what's your goal? Right. Do you want to save money over the life of the loan, or do you need to like loosen up some budget? Like, do you just need to reduce your monthly budget or create space in the budget? And so if someone has mortgage insurance, that goes into it. I had somebody I talked to this week. We did an FHA loan last year. They did a big down payment. They had to do FHA because of some credit history in the past. Right. So he's at 6.125 plus 0.5 MI. So he's essentially at 6.625. Right. If he were to refinance now on a conventional loan and he has the equity, he could cancel the mortgage insurance on his FHA loan, but he would probably be at 6.5, somewhere in that ballpark. And so
he'd be paying closing costs for that.
And he's got to incur costs. And so there's some break-even math. So in the long term, he's not saving, because when you put a larger than 10% down payment on an FHA loan, the MI cancels after 11 years. So he really needs to be competing not against 6.625, but 6.125, his 30-year fixed rate, because that MI will fall off for him eventually, which it doesn't usually do on FHA loans because you're at the lower down payment. So for him, he's got to be at like 5.5, I think, for it to make any sense whatsoever.
So we actually use a mathematical formula on the show. It isn't proprietary. But if you want to know if it's a smart way to do the refi based on mortgage payments alone versus how much it costs to do the refi, that formula is very helpful to make things clear for people if they're thinking about a refi, because it does get kind of gray area. I'm thinking about doing a refi because my rate is higher than what's in the prevailing market, but is it enough in order to make it make sense? Now, how you do that is Mike will talk to you about your house and if they need a home evaluation for a comp, so Mike can figure some things out. I'll do that to find out if there's that equity there to get rid of the PMI.
Yeah.
But what he's going to do is he's going to say, okay, if you refi the house with these terms that you're talking about, this is how much it's going to cost you, and this is how much you're going to pay less compared to your mortgage payment today. Then you take the savings and you divide that by the cost it costs to get that loan, and that will tell you how many months it's going to take of that savings to pay back the cost to get that lower interest rate.
Yeah.
And what we normally say is that you really want to have that taken care of, what, in 2 to 3 years, Mike, if it's possible.
I love like a 2-year or less break even point on that, just that type of analysis. And then the question is, well, how long are you going to be in the home? So if you're going to be in the home longer than that break even, it makes sense. Now, if you then say, but I also want to save money over the life of the loan, then I got to do an amortization, and that, when it's that tight, it's, usually doesn't make sense. And I don't think we're going to have a lot of interest rate savings refinances in this year. But what I do think we're going to have, and I'm already starting to see this, is people who need to refinance because of budgetary reasons. Maybe they need to do debt consolidation. Maybe they have projects or they just need to get into their equity, or they just have some financial need, and the equity is one great place to do that potentially. And it's not as painful. It's not going to be as painful for them this year to refinance their existing first mortgage. Maybe they're like 4.5%. So going from 4.5 to 5.5, and solving some financial strife is going to be an option for people. Whereas, say, going from 4.5 to 7.5 would have never been in the cards.
Right, that would have been
right. So
but let me ask you this: are you seeing, because that this is like canary in the coal mine stuff to me? Are you seeing a lot of people coming because they're strapped on their credit card payments or their car payments, and they're trying to take equity out of their house to offset?
So not a lot.
Okay,
but I can see some of it, and to me, it makes sense. So I'm like logically thinking like this could be the year where because if Johnny were here, he would back this up. Like, consumer spending really hasn't slowed down with the financial crunch. I think there's been a financial crunch, and people are getting priced. Insurance has been one of those things. Interest rates in general, so credit card rates,
consumer goods,
auto loan rates, all of these things. And I think so people have overextended on credit. People have started dipping into savings, even like the savings you're not supposed to dip into, things like 401ks, IRAs. I think people are starting to lean on that. And eventually those taps start to close off, right? They get smaller and smaller. The drips are smaller, and then they close off. And then it's like, well, what do I have left to keep my head above water? And equity position in a home is one of those areas where people can potentially tap into. And so I see that. I can see that that's going to be more in play this year than it has when the rates were going crazy.
Well, and I'd make the case that that's actually a very healthy thing. I think we're going to see it happen. And I don't think it's necessarily a red flag. We're sitting on some of the highest homeowner equity in the history of recording that.
I think they said 40% of the people have 50% equity or something like that. Is that true?
Exactly. I think it's actually a higher number that have more than 50% equity in their home, because we're sitting at about 30+% that actually own their home entirely outright.
I was going to say, there's a lot of people who don't have loans. I don't know if it's healthy or not. Like, it's hard for me to say for the scenario I'm describing, which is people have
overextended.
Yeah, they haven't like tamped down their spending, so they've been tapping into credit and savings, retirement savings even. And so it's great that they have the equity and they can access it in that way, and it makes it easier on the budget. It also creates opportunity to overextend.
Absolutely. I'm obviously bad financial decisions are always bad financial decisions. I think, though, there's an interesting case to be made that Americans are sitting on in a tremendous amount of equity in their real estate, And for many people, like you said, with rates now coming down a little bit, it will make sense to reshuffle the deck a little bit, and they're still going to be in a great position on their home.
Yeah, I think that's true as well. So that people can tap into the equity and still be in a positive equity position.
That's right.
And as a matter of fact, when you're doing cash out refinances for, say, debt consolidation, like you can't overuse your equity. You can get as much as you can, but you're still going to have equity position. So as long as it's house appreciation stays, at relatively flat or even positive appreciation, you're going to be okay, right? Like if you really got into a crunch, you could still sell your home for profit, type of thing.
So Dan, let me ask you, with the interest rates, everybody's predicting the interest rates are going to continue to slide. I'm predicting that too.
Slide.
Yes, to go down.
Okay.
Just, interest rates going down. I put in one of the things on the show that we were having interest rates are crashing. And somebody didn't like that because they thought it was too clickbaity.
Sure.
But it was. I mean, we were seeing a tremendous drop in the interest rates at the time. To me, that was crashing. If the stock market was having percentage-wise same amount, they'd call it a crash.
I think you say slide and crash, and those are usually like negative
things.
Yeah.
So, but my question, I really like to hear Dan's point of view of what you think is going to happen to the market to buyers and sellers right now, and how to take advantage of this upcoming market.
Sure. Well, the best way for me to start that is I look at very high level 30,000 foot view macro data, which is I just believe we're in an extended period of supply and demand imbalance. There are not enough homes available for the number of household formations that are happening. That is a result of the 2008 financial crisis, right? So if you look at that long-term historical data, we need to be adding a certain amount of new home inventory every year. The 2008 financial crisis hit the real estate sector so badly that it essentially stalled new home development for almost a decade.
You're talking about new construction, new home start.
New home starts, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's the current supply demand situation comes out of that, right? And when you add on top of that, I like to look at demographic data. Baby boomers are the largest population currently, own disproportionate share of the real estate and the wealth. They're sitting on the most amount of the equity, and they were best positioned to take advantage of historically low mortgage rates. And they're living longer than ever. So now those homes are not being turned over and recycled. So you've got one large segment of the population holding a bunch of real estate longer than they ever have historically. And thank God, right? With its advances in modern medicine. And then you've got another generation that's very large, the millennials and Gen Z often getting lumped in with them, coming up into the years where they would start purchasing houses in a market where we haven't built enough houses for a decade. And we're closing that gap. Of course, new home starts have been up for a few years now. But I say all that to go at a macro foundational level, there's not enough homes for people who would like to buy homes. And we know that because of the activity we saw over the past few years as mortgage rates went down to record lows. Last year, mortgage rates went up and the activity declined, substantially with them. Obviously, there's affordability issues and things like that. We understand. What's interesting to me over the past 10, 11 weeks, and Mike, you'll probably know this data best, is that we've seen as mortgage rates have declined, mortgage applications have gone up consistently. Right. And particularly over the past 2 weeks, once we cleared the holidays, those mortgage applications have gone up. So what that tells me is that fundamental belief that there's a lot of demand and not enough supply remains true. And as mortgage rates came down, people were ready to get off the sideline and get in the market. And so from there, it seems inevitable to me that we're looking at home price appreciation
that's
in the year ahead.
Right. I think that's going to happen too, Dan. So if you're sitting on the sidelines waiting for the prices to drop, that's probably not going to happen. And people thought it was going to happen last year.
Yep.
And last year we got all the way up to 7.79 for the Freddie Mac rate. That was the highest interest rate since like 2008 or 2009. And the prices still went up.
Yep.
So you can't be betting if you're trying to get your toe in this market so that you could become a homeowner. You can't be betting that the prices are going to like fall out. There's nothing on the horizon. And I'm not one of these rah-rah people, but there's no foreclosure rate. We've talked about this on the show forever. I think we did last month, November. Oh, we went live on the MLS last week. There were 50 short sales and foreclosures in the whole region.
Yep.
Active, right? 50 active foreclosures and short sales.
Not
right?
just Palm Beach County.
No, the
You did
whole MLS
Yep.
when I went in the MLS,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Typed
So you're
in
talking about
REO
4
and
counties
short
there.
sale. Yeah. 29,000, I think, total houses for
Mhm.
sale, 50 short sales and foreclosure. So when I'm saying that there's nothing on the horizon, that's what I mean, not just like my feelings.
That's right.
And so we're not seeing defaults. There's no reason to think that people are going to start selling their houses low because most people have a lot of equity in that house. So the bottom line is if you're trying to get your toe in the market, you just got to not worry about what's going to happen like in the future and worry about can you afford a house right now and try to figure out does that house that you could afford meet your lifestyle enough in order to buy it.
That's right. I think if someone's trying to decide if it's a good year to buy a home, it's a really simple analysis for me. And I know you walk your clients through this. Step number 1 is deciding, is it a good time for you or your family to purchase a home? It's never the mortgage rates being low is not a reason.
Do you listen to Mike?
To buy
I
a home.
swear he must. It's just like you're on the show every week, man.
Well, listen, this is
Yeah.
this is some basic stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of people get it wrong in our industry, and there's unfortunately, a lot of people who don't stick to the professional standard that you guys do of really advising people in their best interest, regardless of the outcome. And so, step number 1 is it the right time in your life to purchase a home? That's always the driving factor, regardless of mortgage rates, regardless of prices. If it's not a good time for you, given your overall life situation, then it's not a good time. Step number 2 is you have a conversation with someone like Mike and say, let me apply. Let me give you the information you need to tell me what I can purchase, what the payment would be, what I would be comfortable with. And then you go have a conversation with you, Jim, and say, this is what Mike approved me for. This is what I'm comfortable with. What's the available inventory? Right?
Yeah, this is what I want.
Right.
Show me what I could afford.
And for the average consumer, it's much less complex than they think. It is really, is this a good time for me to buy a house in my personal life? If yes, talk to Mike. What can I afford? Once I talk to Mike and I know what I can afford, talk to Jim and say what's available based on what I can afford comfortably. And does that meet my needs or not? Right. So we don't have to get into a lot of complexity around this where I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, like what's going to happen in the future, or you're trying to be the Swami of the stock market and real estate market and interest rates and everything else, and you get all confused as to the bottom line.
Which is, if you're a real estate investor, those are maybe some of the things that you should be thinking about. If you're the average, homeowner or potential homeowner, those aren't things you're thinking about. You do what Dan is saying. You basically say, does it make sense for me and my family? Yes. Okay. Let's make sure I know my numbers, right? Not only what can I qualify for, but you're using the word afford, and I like to make a distinction there. What you qualify for is my world. What you can afford is your world. You should have an idea of what that number is. What's comfortable for you. You sit down with Jim, you make a checklist. You start finding, get the homes that check those boxes, and then you can sit back. Jim's going to set you up on a drip campaign of houses that meet your criteria. You're going to have tools from me that allow you to plug in a calculator that's specific to you, and you can sit back and couch surf. And you're going to, at some point, you're going to say, I like this neighborhood. So you're waiting, but you're not just waiting for some nebulous, let me wait for the market to get better.
That's right.
You're waiting for, usually it's a payment, right? You're waiting for the houses that check your boxes, that meet your criteria, and the rates and the insurance and everything that basically allows you to get the home that you want at the price that you need, the payment that you need. And so it's a targeted wait. You're waiting. You're like, you got your eye through the scope and you're waiting for the crosshairs to be able to hit that target. And then not only is it meeting your target, but you're ready to make an offer. Like you're prepared and poised to go look at the home, make sure in reality it's what you want, and then you can make an offer.
That's right. And I think that our culture in the news talks about real estate in that I love how you made the distinction between investment and for the average consumer, because the news talks about investment as in terms of real estate, and they completely ignore the fundamental factors of home ownership that improve the average person's life, right? Which is fixing the cost, in an environment where we've seen rents go up tremendously, being able to fix your cost of ownership, being able to build equity, being able to get a really high amount of leverage. Again, when you're talking about like FHA programs where you can get borrow 97% or 96% of the money to purchase a home and then build equity, it is an opportunity that is the surest path to long-term financial stability for the average consumer.
It's been proven over and over again. They do national study after national study for years and decades now, and they always show the same thing. If you have two people making the same exact salary, the same pay increases, the same everything, one bought a house, one never bought the house, and they continue to rent, all things being equal, the person that bought the house has way more wealth at the end of their life than the person that never bought the house. And we have real life examples. Johnny, who, by the way, I would need to apologize. I gave Johnny a lot of grief for not being here today. He told me 2 weeks ago he was not going to be here today. So I did you know that, Timothy? I didn't even.
About it.
I
Okay.
totally forgot. And I'm texting him this morning. Where are you? And I'm
Hey,
like, oh
bitch.
yeah, he told me he wasn't supposed to be here. He ignored me. So good for him. But Johnny, for example, Dan, when Johnny came to us when we started the show in 2012, he did not want to buy a house. We tried to convince him to buy the house at the time because we were at the lowest prices in a very long time in 2012. He just wouldn't do it because he saw the crash and he's like, I saw what my families went through and I don't want to be that. Then he got married. Then I was like, Johnny, you got to buy a house now. No, I'm not buying a house.
Did he ever say I'm never getting married?
No, I don't think he ever said he wasn't going to get married.
No, I don't think so.
No,
Okay.
no.
All right.
Yeah, he's in love.
Okay.
So, so then what happened? He came to me 9 months later. I'm
Thinking about
guessing
buying a
9
house.
months.
Yeah.
No, and he didn't say I'm thinking about buying a house. He's like, Jim, I got to buy a house. I go, what changed your mind? He goes, we're going to have a kid.
Yeah.
So then it became daddy time. So he bought the house, right? Very nervous about it. We helped him buy the house in 2014. That house is more than 1.5 times more than what he paid for it back then. Now, Johnny took 9 months to get credit approved for FHA financing because he had a terrible, so did I when I bought my first house. And he's talked about this on air, so it's okay to talk about this without a mirror. But he had really bad credit score. He had no money saved. We had to fix everything for him in order to make it happen. It took about 9 months. Johnny thinks a little bit less than that. But we did everything we needed to do to set him up in the right situation. The lady I just talked to earlier bought the house in 2017. House is more than, close to doubled, 80% probably equity in the house from just buying a house 5 years ago.
Sure.
Right? 6 years ago.
It's another great point. So Johnny, not only did he, but at some point he needed some convincing, like, hey, home ownership is going to make sense for you at some point, but he needed time to be qualified to do home ownership. So is it right for you and your family right now? Maybe not. Is it right for you and your family in the coming years?
Sure.
Right. Is there going to be a point where like maybe home ownership is in the card? It is so painless to talk to me and have a conversation about what it takes to get qualified for a loan. And if you have stuff to work on, get a professional set of eyes on those things. So it's pretty simple. It's like credit. How's the 3 things? I'll repeat this. I've said it a bunch, right? Do you qualify from a credit perspective? Number 1. Number 2, what payment do you qualify for? That's debt to income. Number 3, what type of loan are we doing? Right? Is it low down payment, FHA, VA? Is it conventional? One of those, right? Credit, we can get way out in front of credit. You got credit issues. That's fine. Let's work on them.
Yeah.
Right?
Everybody makes it sound like I got bad credit, like it's a death knell.
Yeah.
But it isn't like that.
It's not. I mean, it's just, you need somebody to guide you. And so there's a lot of tools out there that help you monitor credit. They even give you ideas on how to optimize credit. I like that, but I also like talking to somebody who, like, I'm in the trenches on credit, right? I'm not a credit repair specialist, but I am a credit optimization specialist. So I can tell you what it takes, not necessarily clean up the negative, but how to optimize your positive.
Sure.
Or how to maximize what the positive could be for you. And so you focus on that. I talk to people about report cards all the time. It's like, Jim, you flunked out your freshman year. You can't always go back and talk to your teachers and change your grades and like erase that history. No, but you can throw some A's on that report card and you can make sure they're A pluses and you can add as many of them as possible. And your credit you'll start and monitor it and watch the incremental improvement so that maybe this time next year you are ready, even if you have a terrible credit history. So it just doesn't hurt to get a professional set of eyes on it. It doesn't cost you anything but the conversation, right? The time.
Right. I think it's sometimes buyers, they get so afraid about the rejection part, like they're going to be rejected for a loan, so they don't want to go through that process. And you can't look at it as a rejection. You got to look at it as not right. If you can't do it right now, you got to look at not right now. It's not a forever decision.
Sure.
You have control as to change that decision by fixing what you need to fix in order to get the yes answer.
And some of the like people, we've seen this a lot. Maybe they're a little sheepish about having someone else take a look at their performance, right? Like, how have you been as a user of credit?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of this stuff is medical bill related. How many times have I seen student loans where it's like head in the sand, like, oh, student loans, I don't even think about them. Well, look what you could be doing with your student loans.
Yeah,
like, look what you could be doing with your student loans. We don't need to go into it, but so I spot things like that, and I can talk to you about it. I can also talk to you about optimization. So just a great opportunity to have a free resource, somebody who knows what they're doing. And I'm not like pushing you to get a loan, right? We help people because we know that eventually it turns into business, and we're a trusted source for information. So use us, come to us.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a break right now. On the flip side, Dan, let's talk about sellers.
Yep.
And what's going to happen in the market. Is inventory going to go up or down? See what we think.
Sure.
I have some opinions to that. And that's what we're going to talk about on the flip side. You're listening to Florida Talk Real Estate on WZZR. We'll be back in 4.
We're still your at work station, even if your work happens to be on the kitchen table. Bed. Tell your smart device to play Real Radio 92.1 on iHeartRadio.
Hey, it's your boy Johnny C here, host of Florida Talk Real Estate. They're tops when it comes to helping people buy and sell houses. But Florida Talk Real Estate is so much more than that. For 5 years, I've watched these guys help thousands of our listeners with any real estate need. They couldn't do it without their sponsors, who are experts in their fields. Check it out. Jim DePaola, powered by Keller Williams Realty. Their team specializes in helping people sell their house for top dollar, and buyers get great deals on the purchase of their home. That's what they did for me and my family, and I couldn't be happier that I hired them for my real estate transaction. Mike Rauch from the mortgage firm is one of our favorite guests on the show, and he is the mortgage guy. Whether you're looking for a refi or a mortgage to purchase a new home, Mike Rauch will get you the answers you need. The mortgage firm is licensed to do loans in Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, and they have local offices that cover all of South Florida. So if you're thinking about a refi or a new mortgage, go to the mortgage guy, Mike Rauch, and find out what he can do for you. The Mortgage Firm, Inc., NMLS 189233, Florida license MLD 78, equal housing lender. The law office of Paul A. Krasker has been specializing in real estate law for nearly 25 years and has the professional team you need. Upside down with your house, Paul's team can help you conduct short sales, loan modifications, even if you're behind on payments. They also help you with foreclosure defense and bankruptcy. They can even help you get a student loan modification and repair your credit to get the score you need. Paul's full-service team has helped thousands of our listeners, and they can help you too. Trident Title LLC is the largest privately owned title company in Florida. When you need a title company to complete a refi, home purchase, or sale, Trident Title has got you covered. Not only do they offer competitive pricing, Trident Title has attorneys on staff to make sure if you have bumps in the road declaring title that you can get the job done. Beware, not all title companies in Florida have attorneys on staff. Trident Title does and complies with all the new federal regulations released last year. Ross Camaronets, owner of Brightway Insurance, has been helping our listeners get great rates on homeowners insurance plans. Haven't checked your homeowners insurance policy in a while? This is a great way to help reduce your monthly mortgage payment. Ross can also help with renters and auto insurance. Ross is only a phone call away and can usually get the answers you need same day.
Call Ross today at 561-425-6228 or drop by his office at 873 Donald Ross Road in Juno Beach.
So now you know why I'm happy to be part of the Florida Talk Real Estate Show, the longest running real estate show in Florida. And all these sponsors are just a phone call or a click away. Just call 888-973-7828. That's 888-973-7828. Or go to floridatalkrealestate.com. That's floridatalkrealestate.com And don't forget to use the most accurate search engine to find your new home or ask for a free home valuation because FloridaTalkRealEstate.com has you covered. That's FloridaTalkRealEstate.com.
The Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys Studios.
Have you been in an accident? Call Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys at 1-800-747-FREE.
That's 1-800-747-3733.
Real Radio 92.1 is WZZR West Palm Beach, an iHeart radio station.
Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts. Free never sounded so good. This is Florida Talk Real Estate with Jim DiPaola and Johnny C. Got a question for the show? Call us live at 1-877-927-6969.
Hey, this is Florida Talk Real Estate. We're on the last hour of the show. We'll be here until 11 o'clock to take your questions live on air. Any kind of real estate questions you have, we'll have the answers. And if we don't have the answers, we'll get them to you off air for free. This is Jim DiPaola from the Florida Home Pros with Keller Williams Innovation. We've got Mike Rauch from the mortgage firm, The Mortgage Guy. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great. Good morning.
We've got producer extraordinary Jimothy. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank
morning.
you. 877-927-6969. Light up those phone lines. You got a question, comment, concern? Give us a call. 877-927-6969.
Thank you. It's very important when you ask people to call to give the phone number.
I was
And
thinking
I
that.
don't do
I was
that.
thinking that.
And then, of course, we have our special guest, Dan DeMott. I'm so happy that Dan's here. He's a national real estate coach. He used to be the team leader at our office, and now he's my coach. The name of his coaching company is called I Love Coaching. And if you want to find out more about it for real estate agents, you got to go to Dan DeMott, DEMOTT.com and find out and give me a call and ask any information you want about working with Dan, because I'm going to give you some good information.
It
So
would be
Dan-
synergistic if it was I Heart Coaching instead of I Love Coaching.
It actually, the logo actually
is
is.
Is
Yeah.
it?
Oh, is it iHeart?
It is iHeart. The company's called I Love Coaching,
Oh,
but the
okay.
logo is iHeart Coaching.
So, Dan, thank you so much for coming here. We've been talking about what's going to happen in the economy, and I love talking to Dan about this stuff because he is as wonky as I am, and we don't always agree on things, which I like even better, because
Exactly.
who knows who's right? You know, just because I have an opinion doesn't mean it's real. And so we've been talking a little bit about buyers, and what we were saying about the buyers on the last segment is that, you know, as long as that buying makes sense for you and your family, that instead of worrying about what's going to happen in the future of the market, what you should be worrying about is setting yourself up to be ready when you're ready to buy the house, that you're financially capable, you're fully informed as to what the market's doing, you understand the inventory through a great agent, so that when you are ready, you're prepared. That's how you get the best deal, is when you put the work into it up front, as opposed to just going to willy-nilly at the last minute. Is like, my lease is ending on September and I need to buy a house in, and you're calling in August and you need to buy a house in September. Unless you're really well prepared financially, that is going to be a struggle for you. So if you're thinking about buying, make sure that you give us a call so that we can go over it and start the process with you. Now, for the sellers, we've had chronically low inventory for years now. It's been years. Dan, I remember at one point we got to like 0.8 months of inventory for Palm Beach County for single family homes. Now, inventory, just so everybody understands, the way it works is if you have 6 months inventory, that means it's a neutral market, which means if no other properties come on the market based on the current sales volume, how long it would take to gobble up everything that's on the MLS. So 6 months inventory is considered a neutral market, where if it's 6 months, the seller doesn't really have an edge over the buyer, and the buyer doesn't really have an edge over the seller. It's just kind of even Steven. That's the best market for me, as far as I'm concerned.
I feel like we haven't had 6 months in South Florida since I've been, well, I guess 2012. It would have been more
Probably
than
about
that.
right.
Probably more
well,
than
no,
that.
in 2012,
Yeah.
in Port St. There were parts of Port St. Lucie where I would do an analysis for short sales and show the bank that they had 6-year inventory.
Yeah.
Right. 5.5 years, 5 years, 2 months inventory, like crazy stuff. Then we got down to 0.8. I never thought we would see that. Now we're still in the threes. We're in the high threes. Did you see what the last report was? Dan?
We ended December ended at 4 months on the
So we went, which
in
were
Palm Beach
continued-
County,
and that's pretty similar to Dade and Broward. Might be a little different in Martin County because so few homes are sold there.
Mhm.
Everything's a little crazy in Martin for statistic purposes. And St. Lucie, it's still doing very good. Its inventory, hold on here. Its month's inventory is 3.6. So we're about half where we need to be for a normal market, but we are seeing it go up. We were at 3.2 a few months ago, and we're starting to slowly come up. Now I've seen it go back down from that. So we're kind of maybe slowly growing. I'm not sure it's because more properties are on the market. I think it's that they're taking longer to sell.
That's right.
Is that what you're finding, Dan?
Yeah, well, we have that data, right? The days on market has also gone up. If I'm looking at in Palm Beach County right now, median time to contract, so that is how many days is the property on the market until it goes pending, is up to 29 days in Palm Beach County in December, which is up from like a low of 22 in July. And usually, there's a lot of seasonality in that, as well as the inventory. I think the interesting thing.
No, I just want to say one thing. 22 to 29, that might sound like a big deal. It's a week,
right?
But that's a big deal. And when I say big deal, it's statistically relevant. And the reason why is it's the median.
That's right.
So that means half of them took longer than 29 days to get under contract, and half took less. And the ones that took longer, they could be 180 days, 200 days, 500 days on market, and
That's right. And one of the other things you've got to really understand why this is a complex market, and people who are thinking about selling need to go talk to a great real estate professional, is because we're seeing a ton of segmentation. I think higher than I've ever seen in the market.
True.
Which is, when I say segmentation, I mean, how long is something sitting on the market? If the price is over $1 million, how long is something sitting on the market if the price is below 400? Those numbers are drastically different, as our inventory in those two categories. We're seeing a lot more inventory in the luxury market over $1 million here in South Florida. And those properties are sitting for much, much longer. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, in what I would say most people would sort of consider the median average single family home, things are much more competitive. And really understanding that segmentation is important if someone's entering the market.
The part I don't get about the disconnect, we have more millionaires moving to South Florida than ever before, in a very long time, at least. I don't want to say ever before, but we've seen this huge migration of wealthy people coming to South Florida. But the $1 million plus the 7-figure homes are taking longer to sell. I don't understand why there's that disconnect there. What do you think is happening there? Do you think that the people that are put on the market are overpriced, or like, what do you think is happening?
I think there's a lot of elements that go into that. One, I think that you got to be careful. We've had a lot of big names who've moved to South Florida and got a lot of attention, but in terms of the percentage of overall people who've moved, I don't know that that's necessarily as reflective. The other thing you've got, obviously, mortgage rates significantly move the needle as the size of the mortgage goes up. So I think that's a big factor there as well. And I do think that there's an element of people, trying to push the pricing up. There's also inventory. In, I think, the first segment, we talked about fundamental supply and demand and how we've been behind on building new houses. We've actually done much better in South Florida at building luxury property.
Oh, that's true.
Than we have done, right? So there's a lot more new supply that's
Mm-hmm.
been brought online in that $1 million+ category.
That makes sense,
And there
because
is-
I've been complaining for years that these developers, especially 3 or 4 years ago, my big complaint 3 or 4 years ago, yeah, they're finally back in the market building again, but they're building the wrong type of property. Right, because we need the middle class properties being built. But what the developers were saying is the return on the money for the luxury homes is way better and way safer for them. So they'd rather build the luxury homes, sell less of them, but make a higher return on their money. Plus, they're not outreached as much in case something changes. They're not like building these, because they'd have to build a much bigger community, make the same amount of money.
Yeah, that's right. There's also factors with the cost of land in South Florida,
Mhm.
the ability to get density, and construction costs, which cause builders, again, we're looking at something that's been building up over the past decade, to be into higher price point homes versus the more median income. So there's more supply there. I think that market is far more affected by mortgage rates and also what happens in the stock market, how wealthy people feel about buying something like a home. And so it's not surprising to me that we're seeing that market sit a little bit longer.
Now, also for the sellers, I feel like we're going to see more properties come on the market this year than last year because as the interest rates go down, I think that people are really finally willing to divorce their mortgage rate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we've been talking about how people have been, quote, married to their interest rate for so long. Why would I sell my house when I have 3.2% interest rate? Well, do you like the house?
Well, right. There was a great article in the Wall Street Journal a couple weeks ago documenting the rise in cohabitating divorced couples.
Oh, that's
so we've got people who filed a divorce. That divorce has been completed. However, because they have a 2.5% mortgage, neither of them are willing to sell the house. So they're cohabitating as divorced couples.
That's a rom-com movie right there. That's a rom-com movie.
It's a legitimate one though, because if you're selling, you have to buy somewhere, presumably, or rent somewhere. And so, where can you live cheaper than there? So, is it worth it? I don't know.
And so, the interesting thing when it comes to supply dynamics will be right. Arguably, for most people, a relatively untenable situation to be living with your ex-spouse. True. And as mortgage rates come down, right, we reach that threshold. Obviously, to go from 2.5% to 8%, the article says people are willing to deal with their ex. But when we get into sixes, when we get into the fives, maybe it becomes time to move on. So it'll be interesting.
So I really think that what will happen is that there's a lot of sellers out there, when I call them sellers, people that normally historically at their cycle of life would have sold, but haven't because the interest rates were so high.
Yes.
And they didn't want to lose their low interest rate because of affordability. And that makes sense. But I think the rates will start coming down this year enough where they'll start thinking, it's not so bad to give up this rate. But also, I think that there's a lot of people out there that have been sacrificing a lot, that have been convincing themselves that the interest rate is so good that it's okay, that they're not happy with their current housing and they're just going to keep it. But I think that this is going to be the year where a lot of those people are going to say, you know what, it's time to move on.
I don't even know if it's the rate specifically, but more the sentimentality or the mentality that the rates aren't going to change drastically anytime in the foreseeable future. Right. So it's not going to continue. We're not going to go from 6.5 to 3.5. Right. And so you're like, maybe we're in the sixes, which is where I think actually will be by the end of the year, maybe even like the relatively near term, 2, 3, 4 years. So our rate's going to be kind of more or less, is this the new normal? Is it going to stay that way? And so once you reach that, then you can say, okay, now
this is
what am I'm not waiting for 5 years, right? I can't do this for 5 years.
Right.
I don't, I love you, but I don't love you that much.
Right.
Yeah. We're in an interesting time.
I can tolerate you.
Right. Some of these married couples, they might be just going on with how it was before they were divorced, right? Like, I don't talk to you, you don't talk to me, right?
Right.
You're on your phone, I'm watching the game,
Exactly.
I got it's a split house,
right?
A split bedroom house.
The War of the Roses, right?
That's right. The interesting thing I think is going to be this first quarter. That's going to really sort of tell what's going on, and I think it's more tied to demand side economics than supply side, because with the timing of the mortgage rates we talked about past 10, 11 weeks, pretty consistent declines, and that coincided with the holidays. I think we had a lot of people get into the application process, but they're just entering the market. So inventory came up through the end of the year, which also seasonally happens. What I'm looking for when I'm advising real estate agents and when I'm talking to anybody who calls and asks me, is it a good time to sell, is let's give this thing 2-3 weeks and let's see where January ends. Let's see where February starts to look, because if those buyers start entering the market, which indication for mortgage applications is they will, that we could see that inventory retract really quickly, which would mean that
prices will go up.
Prices are going to go up again.
See, that's the part I don't understand about the national economy. This is the thing me and Johnny have been talking about a lot. Okay, so it took us what? Almost 2 years to get from that 9.1% inflation down to the inflation rate we are now. We could argue where we are, but we're somewhere between 2 and 3% inflation, depending on which market indicator you want to use. But the thing I don't get is it took us 18 months of pounding to get to that point. Then as soon as we get there, we're going to start dropping the interest rates.
Reverse course.
And then that means that we're going to get that heated market that you're talking about, which is going to raise prices. It's going to cause an inflationary spike. And then what are they going to do? Are they going to start raising the rates again to like say, hey, this is getting too hot? Then they come down. Then they stay there a little bit. It's like, okay. And then everybody comes back. I think we might be in a ping pong situation this year.
Absolutely. I think
that could happen.
I think that's absolutely right. I think I think that economically, the world is in a different place than it's been historically. And I think a lot of our conceptions about how this stuff works has changed because information is exchanging much faster. And I think what the Fed has done, what Jerome Powell has done over the past year and a half is thread a needle that if you had asked me 12 months ago, is it possible for them to do this? I would say absolutely not. And now I would say they probably did. History will reflect that they did probably one of the best jobs possible. And yes, I think that what they're doing in real time is trying to adjust for a lot of complex macroeconomic factors. The intersection of that and real estate is only one of their overall concerns. And so real estate was punished, very aggressively last year. And I think they've realized, okay, well, we did that, but we accomplished some things in the broader economy over here. And now we might need to loosen up a little bit here, but they're going to be very mindful in watching what is happening with that. The intersection of inflation and real estate is also complex because there's actually two different things we need to be looking at. One is home prices, right? So if you look at home price appreciation, you're seeing, a lot of people have a lot of concerns. Home prices have gone up so substantially over the past 3 years. However, when you look at mortgage payments, right, the inflation of mortgage payments has actually been fantastic, right? And that's arguably the more important thing, which is they can manipulate the interest rate environment such that the average consumer can purchase a house at a higher price and not have their monthly payment go up as much.
Oh, that gets us right into the segue, the article I wanted to talk about from Forbes magazine. They're predicting that what's going to happen this year is that the housing market is heading for the affordability of 2 years ago. This according to Fortune magazine, not Forbes. And it's according to a report from Morgan Stanley. Okay. So what they're thinking is that they're thinking that this is nationwide now, that appreciation is going to flatten out, and that because the interest rates are dropping, that we're going to get affordability of 2021. So what I did was I went back and looked at what where we were in 2021 with interest rates, and also where we were in the real estate market here locally in 2021. So if you just bear with me, let me open up the file. Go ahead, Mike.
Just in my brain, I think back like March 2020 was COVID lockdown.
Yep.
Right. So I've got that in my brain. So I know that, we definitely had a little crunch 2020, but then rates really went down, stayed down.
Yep.
You're talking through early 2021, Jim. What was the date
They
on this?
said February 2021.
I mean, housing prices were crazy in February 2021.
Yeah,
right?
you want to know why? January 7th, 2021, because that's the anniversary of our show, was the lowest interest rate ever recorded by Freddie Mac, which was 2.65. So February 2021, we were at 2.97.
There was a bit of a...
Now, they're not saying... just to be clear, the Morgan Stanley report isn't saying we're getting a 2.97% interest rate. They're saying affordability of homes. So what they're thinking is appreciation is going to be flat. Interest rates will go down. That'll make houses the equivalent of back when the good old days when we were at 3%, and home prices in South Florida. What do you think the single family home price right now in Palm Beach County is what, Dan? Did you take a look at that real quick?
Yeah, actually, I've got that right here. We ended December median sale price $410,000.
Okay, no.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Here we go. Palm Beach County, 580.
580. That's right. Okay, so 580.
So
So
it's
what
down
do you
from
think?
November.
What do you think the average home price was in February 2021? Median sales price in Palm
February?
Beach County, February 2021.
You know what? My first thing is like, what was it in
June of 2021?
Because I'm sure it was way higher.
I mean, we're probably looking mid threes.
No,
high threes.
500.
February
you think 2021. 500.
Yeah, February. Okay, what do you think, Timothy?
560.
Okay, we're at 580 now. What do you think, Dan?
I'm thinking. I'm going to say 395.
Okay, so you're too low. Mike's a little too high. What I want to do is I want to take this out. So 130 divided by this number. Okay, so we had a median sales price in February 2021 of 450 in Palm Beach County.
Okay.
Okay. Today at 580, that's a 28% increase over February 2021 for the December 2023 report. That's a 28.8% increase.
Do you have like May, June of 21 in front of you there?
I can do that. Hold on here.
3 years. It went up quick.
Oh, I
It went
can't,
up really
Mike,
rapidly.
because the month I picked, I only can go up to
Okay.
February. I apologize, but I can do statistically the interest rates. You wanted to know?
Oh no, I could see the rates, but
Yeah, that they were up. They were about the same, 294.
yeah, but
in
there was rapid appreciation.
There
even
was.
for 2020, but they might have picked February because I think spring of 2021 it
Right,
really
was
started
when it
going,
really
going
turned
a little
on.
bit crazy. Yeah.
The other thing that's really interesting with this being a South Florida based
But-
real estate show. Go ahead, Jim.
I just want to say one other thing. I don't agree with the Morgan Stanley view of what's going to happen locally. Maybe nationally, we will see appreciation flat this year. I don't know. I'm not an expert on the national, but locally, I don't see that happening. We're going to see appreciation.
That's
continue.
the point I was going to make. I think for the listener out there, a show like this is so valuable because it's focusing in on the South Florida
Local.
market, and the national news story is much more complex. But the real estate market nationally has changed more since COVID than it's ever changed because there's been so much movement around the country, and what I would call asymmetrical, winners. Right, Florida has been a substantial winner in the real estate market post COVID. And there's been other markets as well. I coach a lot of agents in Columbus, Ohio. That
Mhm.
market has been phenomenal.
Really?
Yeah, as a winner coming out of COVID. And then there's been other markets that are losers. So the average, averaging that out is what happens at the national level. It doesn't translate to South Florida particularly.
Right. So you really need to know what's happening local. And we've always said on this show, it isn't just local. Sometimes it's street by street, block by block.
Yep.
You could be in the same exact neighborhood and the values could be different in a different part of the neighborhood than your neighborhood.
And even the
It's really
segmentation
street
that,
by street.
that Dan was talking about, just price point.
Yes.
Different,
Yep.
whatever. You can see different trends at different
Yeah,
price
if you're
points.
if you're a $1.2 million sale in a neighborhood where the max is like 1.1 to 1.3, but other houses sell for 800, a lot of houses sell for 800, your 1.2 might sit there for a while, even though the 800s are being picked up like Tic Tacs.
Yep. There's
You know?
there's a lot of discrepancy there. And we talked about condos earlier. Obviously, that market is very different. I think that's even more reason why I would encourage the average person who's listening to this and thinking, man, I'd love to own a home, needs to be calling you guys because there's so much opportunity because of all that differentiation and that segmentation. Depending on what their needs are and their financial situation, there may be areas that they can be directed. One of the other ones I love to encourage people to look at is 2 to 4 unit multifamily housing, which Mike,
we're
there's been a
working
lot
on
of, programs that have rolled out for that for someone who's got good credit. But maybe their income is the restriction. Now there's even bigger opportunities where someone can go in and use some of that rental income. That was my personal story. The first property I ever bought was a duplex. And I would not have been able to buy it had I not been able to count on that rental income. And that, in large part changed my financial life, being in a situation where for the first 10 years of home ownership, I had support, on paying that mortgage, and allowed me to build a bunch of equity up.
Yeah, we haven't talked about multifamily in a while, but for many years, I always loved the FHA multifamily. So two to 4 units, you could get in with the 3.5% down payment,
That's right.
As long as the stars lined on the rental income. You could always use the rental income as part of the qualification. And one of the changes that you just were probably thinking about, Dan, is that conventional used to be higher down payment requirements.
That's right.
So you could always do FHA with a loan down payment. You could do VA with a even 0% down on these multifamily. Now conventional, as long as you're going to live there, you can do it as low as 5% down. And that was a change that came in. And so FHA has some restrictions on, especially on 3 and 4 unit properties, that you're not going to find on the conventional side. And so it can really, it's just, if you're in that position, right, where you can occupy one of the units.
That's right.
It is a great way to get your foot into, this could be the beginnings of your real estate investing career.
Yeah. And when you talk about segmentation, that's a segment, right? 2 to 4 unit multifamily, which can be bought with FHA or conventional mortgage, is a segment of the market that is a huge opportunity right now, because when mortgage rates were sub 3.5%, you had investors from all over the country buying them. I've sold plenty during that period of time to investors who are coming in from out of the country or out of the state and buying 2, 3, 4 unit properties. Because interest rates have moved up. They're largely out of that market right now. And that segment has more supply. It's sitting for longer because the interest rates don't necessarily make sense purely from an investment standpoint. But for someone who's looking as a consumer to occupy one of those units and use that rental income, not for investment, but to offset their cost of ownership.
Absolutely.
Huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. David Stein on our team is working on a couple of those deals right now for some homeowners. So hopefully that'll come through. There was an article talking about what's going to happen this year with price appreciation. This report's coming from Money Watch, okay, from CBS News.
Mm-hmm.
Here are 20 cities where home prices could see the biggest gains and where prices could fall. I don't want to get into the 20 cities, but it was amazing to me where some of the highest appreciation was California, even though everybody's talking about how everybody's leaving California. That's not really true.
Sure.
That's more of a political thing than a real reality. There are people moving from California, but there's just as many people moving to, well, I shouldn't say just as many, but there's quite a few people moving to California, believe it or not.
I think there's also a lot of people moving within California.
Yes, and there's a lot of internal things moving around, but most of the price appreciation they're thinking are Washington State and California and Oregon. That's where most of it is. Now, where they think
pretty far away from us.
Yeah, all on the West Coast, pretty much, with the one exception. There's one Florida area that they're thinking appreciation, and that's in Lakeland, Winter Haven. Okay, they're thinking 5.67% appreciation in that area for Florida, but where they think the prices could fall, they said that they believe there's a 70% chance that these 5 areas are going to have price declines. I'm not going to agree with this, but this is what they're saying. Palm Bay, don't agree with that at all.
No.
I have people calling every day about Palm Bay. I have somebody I'm going to be meeting today that's thinking about selling their house and moving to Palm Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Palm Bay's hot right now. Okay. I don't see how that's going to happen. Next one. Number 2 most likely place to see price depreciation. West Palm Beach, Boca Raton, Delray Beach area. That's what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that at all. They're not taking in inventory, I don't think. Next one most likely to decline.
This is still
Morgan Stanley's.
This is
national
their national
report.
How many Florida cities we got on here?
Wait, I'm not even done yet. There's 5 cities that they're predicting to see a 70% likelihood of depreciation, and 4 of the 5 are in Florida. Okay, because they feel we're the ground zero because we grew the most.
Sure.
So that's their theory. Number 3, Tampa. No way. I don't know about you, but Tampa, I'm seeing tons of people talking about Tampa. In fact, this is the first time since I've been a journalist even down here in 1987, where it seems like the West Coast is almost more popular than the East Coast right now.
Agreed.
And I've noticed that that's been changing over a couple of years. So there's no way Tampa, even with the hurricane and everything, there's no way Tampa, the inventory isn't there. And the last Florida city is Daytona. Now, Daytona, maybe. I'm joking. I remember driving through Daytona about 8 years ago on A1A,
Mm-hmm.
and I could not believe how many abandoned oceanfront hotels
Sure.
there were in Daytona. So I'm thinking Daytona needs some redevelopment. And then the last market that they think is going to have a big price drop, Atlanta, right? Because they've had a growth. I don't agree with Morgan Stanley on this one. It's almost like Jamie Dimon from what is it, Citibank, I think it is, or JP Morgan Chase.
Chase.
I'm telling you, that guy's the biggest doom and gloom guy,
Yeah.
and he's wrong more than he's right. And he's always, maybe he just believes in clickbait, but that guy always is saying we're about to crash. How many times during that soft landing process
Sure.
he told us it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen?
Well, that's what I said. I think we've entered a new. I'll give Jamie Dimon a little bit of grace. I think we've entered a new period of time in how economics works. I took a few economics classes, in school, and I would say most of what I've learned as dogma is now been proven wrong, right?
Yeah,
it
has been. Yeah,
and I think it's a post-COVID world, and there's a lot of complexity there to what's going on. Again, the Federal Reserve and how they intervene in the economy is just drastically different than it's ever been. So I think it's hard for people who have a certain mindset to say, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't. And also, at some point, when something doesn't make sense for long enough, you have to go. We're in a new normal.
Yeah, we're in a new
environment.
Like,
There's something else going on.
and I've mentioned on the show a couple of times over the last 4 years or something. Are we in a new normal? Because the interest rates were so historically low for so long. When we first started the show, historically, the average interest rate across the United States was somewhere between 7 and 9% between 1971, when they started this chart, until we started the show around 2012, right? But now that historical average over 40 years has been shrinking and going down because we've had such low interest rates, historically low interest rates. It's anchored everything, weighted everything down. Now we're only at 7.74% for the historic 40-year.
Yeah.
Right. Where we were getting up into the nines because of 1983.
So what's going to drive this depreciation they're talking about in those cities? I don't get it. So rates are going to either stay flat or go down.
They feel we're overpriced.
Are they overbuilding in those cities? They're going to have a glut of inventory come on the market somehow, right? Because the inventory is still going to be low, just like it is.
Right. I think I'd be interested. I haven't looked at the full report, but I think the missing dynamic could be the rate at which buyers re-enter the market, right? Which is the thing we're just sort of seeing this past few weeks. Mortgage applications being up 10, 11% week over week, because mortgage rates have come down and we've cleared the holidays now. That's why I'm telling people, let's see what happens. If you're a seller, if you're thinking about selling your home this year, and again, it's just for sellers, it's just like being a buyer. The time to sell is not when you're going to time the market. It's when it makes sense for you and your family to sell. If that time is over the next 12 months, you should be having a conversation with Jim to say, tell me what's going on. This is what we're thinking about doing. Pull the comps now. What should we be looking for over the next 60 days? Because I've got a few people that I've had those conversations with where I'm saying, hey, let's just watch what happens. If you don't need to sell today because of some urgent situation, let's just sit and see what happens over the next 60 days. And then I'll advise you, because I think that the timing with mortgages and mortgage applications and buyers entering the market, we haven't seen the results of that yet. Downside, things sort of flat. Upside, inventory comes down, prices are going to start to come up, and there's going to be some good timing to come into the market. And we always have seasonality to that, right? May is always one of the best, May, June into June and July are some of the best months to be selling a house because of that seasonality and the school year and things like that.
Absolutely. I want to just real quick talk about insurance for some good news. Not that we're talking about bad news, but with insurance, it always seems doom and gloom. The Sun Sentinel came out with a report earlier this week. Lawsuits against Florida's top property insurers decline. Is it a sign that reforms are beginning to work? So that's a nice headline to see compared to what we've been dealing with for the last 2.5 years, 3 years. Too bad Ross isn't here today. So the lawsuits are down about 20%.
Yep.
So that's what we're seeing is about a 20% decline in lawsuits. That includes citizens besides the private insurers, about 20% decline in lawsuits. They're saying that shows that this is going to work. One of the things I found out, they gave a chart of all the lawsuits against the top Florida property insurers. My old insurance company's in there. I'm not going to give the name, even though I really, really want to. And they have one of the highest complaint for lawsuits out of the group of people that are in here. Now, it could be because they're one of the biggest insurers,
Sure.
but let me tell you, they treated me and drugged me through the dirt to get the money for my house.
Sure.
And had to go to arbitration and court and everything. And it all was a complete mess. That whole system about trying to go up against your insurance company the way they want you to do it is a complete mess. And I went through arbitration 3 times, and 3 times they ruled in my favor, and 3 times the insurance company didn't do anything about it. Finally brought them to court, and the judge says, I can't do anything about it because your policy says that you have to go to the arbitration.
Right.
Even though I went through arbitration 3 times, they would not review it. They said I didn't have a recourse to go to court. Now, this is before all the changes to the lawsuit, the lawsuit groups. And I'm like, why did you allow us to file a lawsuit in court if we're not allowed to do that according to the contract we signed and I have no recourse? Why did the court system even allow me to do that?
Sure.
I don't even understand
You
it.
can't get to arbitration unless you have a lawsuit.
No, the way that's right. So normally what would happen, like in an as-is contract, you have to go to arbitration first if the 2 sides are fighting, and you have to go to arbitration first. But if you lose, then you can go to court, right? But
doesn't the arbitration follow the filing of the lawsuit? Like
no,
if you don't have
not
the
necessarily.
no?
No, you don't have to follow. You could just go straight to arbitration. I see what you're asking.
Okay.
But in my case, I went through the arbitration 3 times, then said, that's it. We're going to go ahead and sue you. And then they took the case. The court system took my case. The defendants didn't say, hey, you're not allowed to do that according to our contract. The attorney we hired didn't say, hey, you're not allowed to do that, right? According to your contract, you don't have recourse there. And they let me sit in the system for like 3 months and then go, we're not allowed to handle this case.
Right.
Welcome to Florida, right? So anyway, I'm glad
one of those
they're
changes is when you ask why did the attorney allow you to do that? Well, now the attorney can't do the I'll get paid at the end one way or the other.
Well,
type of
they
thing, right?
do. In this article, there is a little language in here I was surprised about. So in this article, it says you either have to pay the attorney or you have to agree to give up 30% of the proceeds from your case automatically. So you got to tell the judge, if we win, I'm giving 30% to the attorney, and you have to do that up front.
Right. Whereas before, that 30% or the attorney's fees essentially would have come from the insurance company.
The insurance company would pay the winner, if you will, and the insurance company pay the winner. Now the owner, even if you win, has to pay the attorney costs. So either you could pay it up front as part of the costs, or you could just take off 30% off the top if you win.
So if the amount of claims, the percentage of claims are down, you said
20%,
lawsuits, right? Lawsuits, right? So lawsuits
yeah.
are down because it could be just because of that change. It could also just be that like the amount of claims is down because we haven't had any major storms.
No, that's the opposite, Mike.
Claims are up.
Well, no, that they said the claims would have been even lower than 20% down, except for the hurricane on the West Coast.
Okay.
It would have been even lower. So maybe we're in good shape.
Well, listen, rarely am I known as one who is going to give politicians any kind of credit. But the Florida State Legislature did do a lot of really good work with the insurance reform last year and the year before, and I believe when they complete the next session, they'll further that. And I do think this is a result of some of that legislative changes to get some of the fraud out of the system in South Florida. And because long term, what we need is more insurance companies willing to come participate in Florida. Our insurance is the lawsuits are part of the solution, but the long-term solution is get more competition for homeowners insurance in Florida.
Absolutely. I also think that people's expectations on insurance are going to have to change. There's a lot in this article I was like, well, this makes sense, even though as a homeowner, I won't like it. So for example, you put on a brand new roof and now you're paying for the insurance on the roof, but now your roof is 15 years old and then it gets blown off in the hurricane. The way it works now is if you have full replacement, you just get the new roof and that's it. They're thinking about changing the guidelines for this where you get prorated discount on the roof and things, which actually, even though that would stink when you have to cough up the money, if it made the industry better so that people can get home ownership, it will increase the value of your home. in the long run, because you're not going to have this crisis. Do you know there's a lot more people that are leaving? There's a lot of people leaving Florida, and a lot of people who decide not to move to Florida thought we're going to move just because of insurance. So we're losing a lot of activity because of this.
Yeah, it also could, that change right there could make it so that instead of going for a new roof, maybe you're more likely to go for the roof repair, which may or may not be a tenable option, like something, you know, because a lot of people say, hey, I had roof damage, I need a whole new roof. And that's a much bigger claim, obviously, than some level of roof repair.
Yeah, if you had 10% damage, maybe you just replace that.
Well, and one of the things Floridians have been denied because of the lack of competition is a variety of prices based on the condition of your property. So to connect to something we talked about earlier with homeowners sitting on record high home equity, and now rates coming to a point where someone might look at refinancing. Over the past few years, if you were to refinance, take cash out, and put a new roof on your house and put impact windows, which by any logic would lead you to believe your insurance should then go down, you've significantly improved your property and reduced the risk of a claim. That hasn't happened. There hasn't been enough competition in the market so that better properties could get better insurance rates. So hopefully, as this legislation rolls through, we get more competition. New insurance companies will come in and start saying, hey, if you put a new roof on this place, your insurance premium will go down substantially. And then consumers can look at getting an ROI on that, right? Yes, I'm going to refinance, I'm going to put a new roof on, but I'm going to get savings on an annual basis from that in my insurance. And that's been completely a non-existent topic for the past few years.
It's true. I wanted to do one more shout out that's kind of related to this. Lisa and David, they came to us to look for a rental property while they were moving from upstate New York, and they were coming down here to they needed a transition place so they could look for a new home. I got them with David Stein, our team member from the Florida Home Pros. David, they were looking for a 55 over community. I got to tell you that Valencia Lakes, Valencia up in Port St. Lucie. Now, I haven't been there yet, but David was wowed with the facilities out there.
Beautiful community.
I've been reading some articles. They might be advertising articles talking about how that's going to become the new like area for the villages kind of experience out there. The extreme 55 and over type of communities that are just on steroids. So
they're on TRT.
Yeah, exactly. So just it depends what color what do you call those things? Is the things that you use to take a shower with, the little spongy? No, not the loofah, the other kind of thing that's anyway. They put them on their golf courts, different colors to tell you what their sexual preferences are and stuff. It's like crazy, right? Yeah.
It's a different kind of community. Entirely.
Yeah, it's very different. But look,
wait, did David?
I'm not saying no. I'm not saying David. I want to make it clear. I'm not talking about David and Lisa. I'm just talking about these type of communities. They're a hoot. But really looking forward to moving there. I think they made a really smart move because they bought newer construction, which means they don't have to worry about insurance hopefully for a very long time,
or just big mechanical costs.
Yeah, like all the deferred maintenance stuff, they have less risk to deal with it. Jimothy just went through that with his home at Synergy Homes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when you talk about that one, when you said Palm Bay was on the list of communities that they think will see price depreciation, I immediately am going to discredit that article. Because
they're going
right.
That's why I've heard Palm Bay is the place to like invest right now.
Yeah, and because historically, we've got great data in South Florida. South Florida is a move north trend, right, and it's a pricing and affordability play entirely, and that's not going to stop as prices in Miami and Broward and Palm Beach continue to go up. That drives people further north. It's always been the backbone of St. Lucie's, Port St. Lucie area, and Palm Bay's growth has been price increases in the Tri-County area. That's only going to continue. And there is significant savings up there. So
yeah, when median single family home in Palm Beach County is $580 and in Port St. Lucie's $410, right? For a median single family home, it's proven.
And like you said, the insurance savings. I have a very good friend of mine who just bought a place in Valencia and in Port St. Lucie, and beautiful 4-bedroom house, brand new construction. His homeowner's insurance is $2,000 a year. In Palm Beach County, in Palm Beach County, it'd probably be $8,000.
Yep, exactly. Hey, we only have a few minutes left. I just want to go into one thing, Dan. I am in the process of looking for a new person on my team this is not an agent. I don't want the person to want to be an agent.
That's right.
I want somebody, what we're looking for is a customer care rep, not a salesperson. And what we want that person to do is to communicate with our database on a regular basis all the time, looking to find out if people have real estate questions.
Yep.
Dan, could you go a little bit more into it, of like what the position entails and stuff?
Yeah, well, so I think it's an amazing opportunity for someone, and I'm possibly a listener here, to join your team. The opportunity is this radio show has afforded you the opportunity to build this database of amazing followers, and you're looking for a way to connect with them deeper and bring them more value. You've got this core group of amazing people in multiple industries who can help with all kinds of real estate related concerns, not just buying or selling or getting a mortgage, but also, getting things fixed around your house and all the things that come with owning property in South Florida. We're looking for someone who's going to join the team and really strengthen those relationships and make sure Jim's bringing the value of his network to as many of his listeners as he possibly can.
Absolutely, because we're not asking somebody to call up and just set appointments or whatever. We're actually want to go into our database. People have reached out to us. We have thousands of people in that database that reached over to us over the years. And we just want to know, do you have any real estate questions that we can help you with? And then we give you the advice. And then if it makes sense, you work with us. And if you don't, you don't. And one of the things that's really good about that position is we're looking for somebody with a really special personality where they are very people oriented. Dan had a really good example of the person to say, why would I want to text somebody if I could talk to them on the phone? That's the kind of person that we're looking for on this. And we want somebody who gets real value out of helping people. One of the things that I enjoy about being on the show is the amount of people that we help for free. And, Mike is, we're all cut from that. Ross Camarinus from Brightway Insurance, Mike from the mortgage firm, right? Me at Keller Williams, right? Trident Title. They've helped so many people over the years get the advice they need. Then we have the law office of Paul A. Krasker. You have probate or title things or things like that, setting up trusts, all of that. We can help you with all of that, even commercial stuff now that we have David. And if we don't know the answers, here's the best part. If we don't have the answer for you, here's the thing. We're not going to tell you an answer that we don't know. What we're going to do is research it for you and get you the answer. And we don't expect to be paid for any of that. If you end up working with us, if you work with Mike and he does a mortgage refi, Mike's going to be paid. If Mike calls you up to how to repair your credit or increase your credit score, he's not going to say, hey, I want money for that. He's just hoping that you're going to come back when you're ready. And that's the way we are. And we're looking for somebody that wants to have that kind of feeling every day and to really get to know people. Johnny was in this position for a while he was going through just transition from the station. He knows more than anybody else about how deep our ties are to most of the people in that database. And that's what we're looking for. We only got about...
What's it pay, Jim?
No. Well, actually, Dan, why
can you
don't
say that on the air?
Well, how do you want to describe that? Because it's a very varying.
There's a couple different possible compensation structures. Again, this is not a sales position. This is going to be someone who's going to contact the listeners of this show and love on them, make sure they get taken care of. And there's a lot of flexibility around that. So depending on the person's qualifications, what type of flexibility they need, and their performance in the role, it is a very potentially lucrative situation.
Boom.
Yeah. We're talking pretty good money here. You're going to be very happy if you do this at a high level.
If you're a people person and you want to talk to people on a regular basis, you will be well compensated.
Oh yeah, you're going to be very, very happy.
So how do they?
Call the regular number?
Call 88. Thank you, Jimmy.
7828
888-973-7828. 888-973-7828. Thank you, Timothy. Hey, another great show, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you come back.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Mike, I hope you come back. I hope you come back too sometime,
I'll
right?
be here.
Timothy, maybe next week?
I'm out.
You think, you're out no more? You're done?
No, I'll be back. I love it.
Hey, is Greek coming on now?
Greek's coming on.
The
Joe's
locker
coming
room.
in. We're going to talk a little bit of sports. I think something's going on in football. I don't
NFL?
know, playoffs today. Playoffs.
NFL?
Playoffs.
Playoffs.
Yeah, we'll be talking some football, I'm sure.
I had to look the other day. Which came first, playoffs or practice? and they were very close to each other. But I think playoffs or maybe practice
playoffs did because that was what the
2020. I mean, 2000 versus 2001 or something. They were very close together, though.
Really? Was
yeah,
it? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right. No,
Both around the same time.
Practice. Talking about practice. That was Allen Iverson. Right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
There we go. So yeah, we'll be talking some sports and again, that phone number is the same. 877-927-6969. Want to talk some sports with us? Please give us a call. Jim, great job. Thank you.
Thank you guys. See you next week.
All right.